Hey guys, I received a question from one of you on Instagram, and I'm not going to mention the person's name because I don't know if they wanted me to share that they sent that comment, and they didn't say either way. So if you guys send me questions and you're okay with me saying like, hey, so-and-so, thank you for sharing your question, I will definitely shout you out. Just make sure in the comment you give me permission that you're okay with me saying your name. Otherwise, I won't, just to protect your privacy. So I got this question. Really nice comment. Hey lady, you're such an inspiration. I've been watching some of your videos. I believe you actually had showed us a property last year. I'm not sure how I stumbled on your videos or page, but this is exactly what I want to do. Although I have zero knowledge of home repair, I've been wondering how I can make take my home equity and turn it into another property. I've already learned so much in such a short time from your videos. Thank you. I appreciate all the info you share for people like us. Thank you. Okay, so there's two things that I want to unpack in this question. The first part is, how can you take your home equity and use that? This light, you guys. I'm so sorry. How can you take your home equity and use it to start the process for investing in an investment property? And then maybe some tips and tricks for somebody that wants to get into real estate investing, but they are not handy. They don't have the construction knowledge and background. So the first part is probably the easier part. You have a couple of options. If you have equity in your home that you want to pull out and invest in another property, you have the option of doing a home equity line of credit. What that means is you have enough equity in your property, and every lender is probably going to have a little bit different standard, but you have to have the equity in your property. So say, for example, you bought a $300,000 house and you owe $280,000 on it. You don't really have any value in your home that you can pull out, because they're not going to let you pull out 100% of the value of your property, but they are going to make sure that you still have a certain amount paid off even after you pull out. So you have to have a significant amount of equity in your home to be able to do a HELOC, or a home equity line of credit. So if you have, like, maybe you bought a home several years ago, you've paid extra or you've paid it down, like say you bought that $300,000 house, but you owe $100,000 on it, then you definitely have a lot of play where maybe you can borrow that money and pull out. I know some people that use HELOCs on a rotating basis. I know there's some flippers and investors in town that just constantly do HELOCs, and they pull out, they renovate, they do it over and over again on their primary home, and they have relationships with banks that they just kind of wash, rinse, and repeat doing that. So if you have the equity, you can do a HELOC. There's a couple things that are going to factor in. You have to have the equity. You still have to have the income that shows that you can make the payment, because if you do a HELOC, when it becomes time to pay it back, you're going to have an additional payment. So when they look at your debt to income ratios, or your, here's how much debt I have, here's how much payments I have, like a car payment or anything you owe on that you pay every month, they have to be able to see that you fall within the ratios that they're willing to let you pull that amount of money and then make that payment when you start paying it back. So that's something they're going to look at. You're going to have a good credit score. If your credit score has declined since you got the mortgage and you have a really low credit score, they may not let you or grant you a home equity line of credit. So every bank's going to have its standards, but those are kind of some of the ins and outs. One of the nice things about a HELOC is, if you are one of those people that bought a home in the last couple of years when interest rates were absolutely amazing, you're not having, now the money you borrow is going to have a different interest rate more than likely, but the money that is your principal mortgage, it's not like you're refinancing your entire property. So the other option is a full refinance, but you're going to lose your great credit score. So your great interest rate. So say you have a 2.75 interest rate, or one of those even better interest rates from the last couple of years. If you pull the HELOC, your primary loan, that interest rate stays the same. Now, if you don't qualify for a HELOC and you want to pull money out of your property that you have a lot of equity in, you do have the option to do a cash out refinance. And what a cash out refinance means is you refinance that property completely, but then you're going to be looking at today's interest rates. So if you don't have a great interest rate, then that's really not a big deal. But if you do have one of those really good interest rates, complete refinance may not be the best case scenario for you, because you don't want to give up like a 2% interest rate or a 3% interest rate for a 6 or 7% interest rate. So that's something to consider. If you do a full cash out refinance, you're still going to have some equity in the property. There's still going to be some fees and some loan costs associated with that refinance. Depending on how much you pull out, you could pay those up front, or you could fold those back into your loan, but there are going to be some additional costs associated with that. But if you don't qualify for a HELOC, a full cash out refinance may be an option for you as well. Okay guys, real quick, I started editing this video and I realized that I neglected to mention something that I think is important to note here. Okay, so if you are looking at doing either a home equity line of credit or a refinance, but I think this would apply a little bit more with a home equity line of credit. Most people are not going to have enough equity in their home. I guess it just depends on the area you live and how much you've paid down on your balance, but I would think most people aren't going to have enough equity in their home to do a home equity line of credit and pull out enough to buy a complete, like, the full purchase price of another home. Depending on if you're really buying a fixer-upper and you're buying one of those $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 houses, then yeah, probably. But if you are looking at doing a home equity line of credit to borrow money that potentially is just going to be the down payment on your investment property, here's where you really need to talk to your lender. If you borrow any large amounts of money for mortgages, well, really any debt, but especially mortgages, they're going to look at that debt to income ratio. So all of your debt, all of your income, it has to fall within a certain percentage. So say you do a home equity line of credit and you have that extra monthly payment and you pull that money out, and that's just going to be your down payment. But then you don't qualify because the income level is not high enough, or the debt level is then too high, where you don't fall within that ratio where you can't use that cash from your HELOC then to go buy another property, because then you won't qualify for a mortgage on that property. That's something you need to be careful of. So if you're using the HELOC for a down payment and not for the full purchase price, just make sure you're in really close communication with your lender on those numbers to make sure that even then when you make the purchase and have that additional payment, it all falls in with the ratios you need to be within, so you don't do a HELOC basically for no reason. So just thought that was important, wanted to add that real quick. Now, the best thing to do is just talk to a trusted lender in your area, because you can look at all the stuff online about the stuff that's possible for you, but if you can't make contact and find a lender in your state that allows that, lenders are licensed by state. So there might be an amazing lender in New York or Florida, but if they're not licensed to work in your state, for instance, I'm in Wyoming, they can't help you. So for me, it's really important to find a trusted lender, and I have a really good lender that is licensed in Wyoming that I know and I trust, and I can always ask them questions and go to them and know that they're going to be straightforward and not just trying to sell me something. They're always going to be honest. So it's important to build that relationship with a trusted lender. And if it's a good lender that cares about you and growing that relationship with you, they'll answer your questions and help you. If maybe you can't do it now, they'll say, okay, here's the 3 things you need to do to work towards what your goal is. So talk to a lender that's licensed in your area that comes highly recommended. Now, the other thing I want to unpack is somebody that wants to get into real estate investing that doesn't have a lot of knowledge in home repair. You have to think about how much it's going to cost you to complete the renovation and how much it's going to cost you if you're doing it yourself versus if you have to pay a professional. I save a lot of money because I am able to do projects myself. I have had people come to me that want to get into investing. I had a friend several years ago and they had a family member that was willing to lend them some money. Well, that money actually didn't go that far once you looked at having to pay for labor on those projects. And the worst thing you can do is get into a project and then be stuck in it and have it halfway done, because it's really hard to sell those projects. So you need to look at properties that are realistic, that either you have the money to pay the tradespeople to do the rehab, but you don't have to buy a fixer-upper when you're getting into investment property. I have a client who just the other day, they have an investment property because they started in their first home, they moved out and upgraded their home, they kept their home from before as an investment property, and now they bought their first intentional investment property and they used a home equity line of credit. They both work a lot and have full-time jobs, and so for them to buy a fixer-upper and they don't have the knowledge to do all the repairs themselves, for them, the best case scenario was buying something that was turnkey, close to turnkey, or had some cosmetic repairs. Okay, paint, counters, whatever. But they can't buy a full gut, because if they bought something that needed gutted and renovated, if you think about how much time, not just the money, but how much time that takes, you're buying a property that until you get it ready, you only have expenses and you have no income off of. And so if you are new to investing and you are not handy, or you don't have a partner that's handy that's going to put in that side of the work, don't buy something that's going to take you a year to get ready and turn around and make money off of. Buy something that is less scary and in less poor condition, because yes, it looks great to buy this huge fixer-upper and add a lot of equity, but if you can't get it done, then you lose everything you invest. So that's where you have to look if you are an investor or you want to become an investor and you're starting out, is things that do not need a ton of repairs. They might not cash flow as much, but they're not going to get you into a tragic situation right out the gate as your first investment property. So hopefully this was helpful. I thought that this might be a question that others had, so instead of just responding to this person, I just wanted to make a quick video.